Continuing with the news. Regarding the missing female university student case that occurred last month, it has now been revealed the victim may have been involved in some sort of financial trouble. The person who was gone missing is the female university living in Tokyo, Mitsuguchi. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're diving into a creepy manga that's gonna give you chills. This one's packed with horror stories that'll make your skin crawl. But today, we're just covering chapter 1. If you're into this kind of stuff, we can totally go on to the next chapter later. So, here's a quick rundown. The story kicks off with a girl who's struggling financially, and let's just say things start getting real dark from there. Alright, let's jump into it, but don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next one. Tells a story of a student named Hinata who is experiencing poor financial conditions. She was daydreaming. Suddenly her friend surprised her. Her name is Miki. They greeted each other. Miki asked what Hinata did during summer break. Hinata replied that she was only busy with her part-time jobs. Miki then said that Hinata never changed. But Hinata was a little confused by her friend's appearance. Those accessories, they're high-end branded. Everything that Miki wore, from bags, clothes and even shoes, were expensive items. Miki only replied that she bought them herself. Hinata could only envy. She was curious, where did Miki get that much money? Was it also from part-time jobs? But Miki didn't tell Hinata her source of income, she just said something like that. Hinata was even more curious, what kind of part-time did Miki do? Again, Miki didn't tell her what job she did during summer break. They both said goodbye. On the way home, Hinata accidentally heard about Miki. She heard that Miki was holding hands with an older guy. She was getting a ton of money. It turns out that Miki got money with an application called Papa-Katsu. This application refers to the activity of spending time with financially well-off men and receiving money in return. And you can read the rest. Hinata, who was experiencing poor finances, had no choice but to use the application. She arrived at her residence. Not long after, she received a message from the application. She got a message from a man named Takino. He's looking for someone to have an enjoyable conversation with. Takino invited Hinata to meet and of course, she would be paid. Hinata replied to the message by saying that she's interested. If possible, she would prefer that their relationship be limited to just having meals together. Then Takino replied having fun conversation would be more than enough. Hinata was happy with that. The next day, they both met. Mr. Takino looked a little strange. Hinata, who first met him, looked surprised. But she was on guard in case something unwanted happened. They arrived at a restaurant. While waiting for their order, Hinata tried to lighten the mood because Mr. Takino had been silent with a blank stare. Not long after, their food arrived. She looked happy to see the delicious food. While eating, Mr. Takino took out his wallet and asked if Hinata wanted to listen to his story. Of course she was happy. The truth is Mr. Takino has a family. That is his wife, Ryoko, and his daughter, Yui. They are both kind and the pride of his life. Seeing her family photo, Hinata said that Mr. Takino has a happy family. But she was a little worried because of her meeting with him. Mr. Takino replied that she didn't need to worry. Both of them are already dead. Hearing that, Hinata trembled. Mr. Takino continued his story. It was about 15 years ago. They died while he was out at work. There was a fire. It was so intense that it completely burned down the apartment building they lived in. The cause was due to another resident's careless handling of fire. It took a full day for the fire to be completely extinguished. When the police escorted him to see his wife and daughter, they had been burned beyond recognition, turned into blackened charcoal. They were in such a state that they would crumble if touched. Are you enjoying my story? Hinata could only be shocked to hear the horrible story. Not long after, they both said goodbye. Mr. Takino took out a large amount of money. She was a little confused about what that much money was for. The money was her allowance for that day. Hinata did not want to accept the money because it was a lot. Mr. Takino said that she did not need to worry. He was happy that Hinata enjoyed listening to his story. He also offered Hinata to meet him again. Then he left. Hinata, who had a hard time, was now a little happy because her job was only enough to listen to Mr. Takino's story. The next day, on campus, she met Miki. She was a little surprised because Hinata was wearing new shoes. Hinata said that she had a little income, so she treated herself. Miki then replied whether her income was from a part-time job. She replied that it was a secret. Miki seemed unhappy with Hinata's answer. A few days later, Mr. Takino met Hinata again. Just like the first time they met, they were at a restaurant. She looked embarrassed eating her food. As usual, he started telling a story. But there was something strange about his story that day. He repeated the story of where he and Hinata first met. He told a story about having a family and how his family died. At the end of the story, he asked Hinata if she enjoyed the story. Hinata, who looked surprised, could only answer yes. After that, Mr. Takino gave her a lot of money. The next day, Mr. Takino met her again. They were at a restaurant again and repeated the story from yesterday. Hinata began to worry about Mr. Takino. The following days repeated themselves until Hinata finally collected a lot of money. She then got a message from Mr. Takino to meet again. The next day before Hinata met Mr. Takino, she was honest with Miki that she got money from the application. Why did Hinata suddenly be honest with Miki? She felt that doing all that was a little creepy. Something feels off. She has already gotten enough money and she wants to break up with Mr. Takino. Miki, who supports her decision, immediately contacted him and refused to not meet that day. When Hinata was walking home, suddenly Mr. Takino approached her. Hinata, who was starting to panic, tried to calm down. Mr. Takino, with his scary face, said, "Will you listen to my story?" Hinata, who was shaking, said that she couldn't listen to his story. But he gave Hinata money. She then refused the money because she didn't do anything. He forced her to take the money because he had spoken to her. She reluctantly accepted the money. The next day on the train, she met Mr. Takino again. With the same words, Hinata scolded him. She then left the train. When she arrived at campus, she immediately ran towards Miki. While crying, Hinata didn't want to do it anymore. Miki also wanted to report the incident to the police. When they arrived at the police station, Hinata handed over the money given by Mr. Takino to the police officer. The police said that she should avoid being alone as much as possible. Hinata went home by taxi. When Miki gave the money for the taxi fare to her, she was immediately scared. Hinata was traumatized by that. When she felt better, she almost arrived at her place. When she wanted to pay for the taxi, the driver said that the taxi fare had been paid. Hinata was surprised. He left a lot of money. The driver had just had that experience for the first time. He said to keep the change, even when the driver told him he didn't need that much. Hinata began to suspect that the person who paid for her taxi fare was Mr. Takino. Before the driver had time to answer Hinata's question, suddenly someone appeared from the front of the car. The driver reluctantly hit the person. Hinata looked back and saw that the person the driver hit was Mr. Takino. With a little strength, Mr. Takino said, "My final story, did you hear me?" A few days later, Hinata locked herself in her room. Not long after, the police contacted her. The police said about the traffic accident the other day. The victim, Mr. Takino, he passed away. Judging from the footage on the dashcam, it's likely a suicide. Hinata felt relieved with Mr. Takino's death. She then contacted Miki and told her that she was feeling better now. While chatting with Miki on the phone, Hinata saw a box in front of her door. She opened the box, and it contained a lot of money. Hinata was still traumatized by that. Then behind Hinata,